Это мир Авито, где теперь появилась оценка стоимости авто. И мы с сыном быстро нашли авто по цене ниже рынка и можем больше времени провести вместе. Сосиска. Авито сравнивает цены на похожие авто в моем регионе. Они смотрят на модель, пробег, год выпуска и многое другое.
Авито. Покупайте автомобили по отличной цене.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
Good, Sergey. How are you? Nice to see you.
First of all, I want to thank you very much and relate our gratitude for allowing us to translate and publish your book in Russia. It's a unique knowledge that we hope will give a great benefit to the Russian automotive community. So we thank you very much for that. And we also thank you for your time and an opportunity to, for the Russian automotive dealers and other maybe OEMs or whoever will be listening to this webinar to get a chance to know you and introduce your book and to answer some of our questions.
Thank you. It is my honor and pleasure to be here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim. So I have some questions, and we will start with the questions that I've prepared. And we may find during the course of this webinar that you give us some ideas, and the questions may go the different way. But I wanted to first start with your career. And the first question is sort of natural. How did you get an automotive business? What made you interested in cars?
Oh, wow. Well, what made me interested in cars? I have to smile at that because that takes me back to a great time in my life. My first car, when I turned 16 and got my driver's license, was a 1969 Oldsmobile Delta 88, and it had the 455 engine with the 4-barrel and the positraction transmission. It was an awesome car. And in high school, I had a friend who had a 1972 bright red Chevy Nova that went like a bat out of hell. It was a little rocket. And we just did everything to those cars. Of course, we changed the oil, we changed the spark plugs, we changed the shocks. And of course, this is a while ago, Sergey, so we also would get in the inside and we put in 8-track tape players, if you remember those from way, way back. I got into the business, into the dealership business. I was hired right out of school by a company named Tricom. Tricom had developed a computerized shop dispatching system for car dealerships. And it did shop dispatching and what was called service order scheduling. Just think of it as shop loading. Now, this was before the internet. This was even before the PCs. So my job was to come into the dealership on Sunday night, get the computer system, unpack it, assemble it, run all of the cables through the service department, then connect the computer. Then on Monday, we would train the dispatcher on how it worked. And then on Monday night, I'd get pizza and we'd input all of the carryovers, all of the repair orders. And then on Tuesday morning, we'd go live dispatching the work to the technicians. And then I would go from service advisor to service advisor, teaching them on how to use the system. And then finally the service manager. And then we'd go over the reports and then I would leave. So that was, I did that for a few years, and that was just a great way to learn how service departments work because you're literally inputting every aspect, but you're also talking about them. You know, how many technicians do you have? How many bays do you have? How many shifts do you have? What's everybody's skill set? How do you want the shop to run? And you know, that was just a great way to learn the service departments. It was also a great way to learn the software and hardware side of the technology business. So it was just serendipitous that I was hired by these guys, and literally for a couple of years, every week I would be in a different dealership service department working with the people. And the advantage of that was over time I got to see very, very closely how different dealership service departments operated. So you started to see, you know, good practices, bad practices. And then in addition to just installing the computer system, I could work with service management to make recommendations on, well, you know, this dealer did it this way. Maybe you want to try it like this. Give them different recommendations on how to become more efficient with their technicians and how to communicate better with their customers.
It's interesting. So you kind of grew up, you know, the business was evolving with computers and everything, and you were evolving with your business. So you went all the way.
That's
You
a good way
mentioned
of putting it.
yeah, well, Jim, let me ask you a question. It's actually may sound like an unusual question, but it's you have still having a very successful career. You worked with some of the largest providers of automotive technologies and services in the world, actually, and including Cox Automotive and other companies. And I'm sure that it took some sort of a organization and leadership skills. What do you feel? What kind of leader are you? What do you see yourself? How do you see yourself as a leader?
That's an interesting question. You know, it's probably a good question for the people that I've led over the years. Why don't I start by answering that? Let me tell you some of the maxims that I've learned over the years that guide myself as a leader. I've picked up some of these from mentors, and others I've just picked up along the way. The first and one of my favorites is lead from the front. And that's just because there's no substitute for looking the customer in the eye, having a conversation with them, or using the tools and processes that you're asking others to use. You can't do that all the time, but not finding time to be with customers, walk alongside your team, can blind you to really what's going on in your business and in the marketplace. The second one is, ask yourself, would you rather be right or successful? And I have to ask myself this question all the time in business and in my personal life. Asking yourself that question keeps you flexible and focused on your real goals versus stuff that might be ego-driven. You know, I will say that some of the more puzzling personalities I've encountered in life are the ones who, when you ask them that question, say, well, I'd rather be right. I can't understand that. A third one is you'd be surprised what you can accomplish if you don't care who gets the credit. When you're focused more on who gets credit than the work that needs to be done, you lose sight of the objective, which is to win, to be successful. Once you get the credit, or some people might refer to it as politics, out of the way, all of that energy can be redirected to your product or the customer. And the last one I would mention is the saying, I never learned anything while I was talking. You come across people who talk all the time, and they could pontificate on any number of subjects. But what you notice about people like that over time is that they get stale. They wind up just repeating the same thing over and over because they're not taking in anything new. The world at large, and particularly our industry, Sergey, is a very complex place. It's changing very quickly. So not listening and seeing what's going on will eventually cause you to start making wrong decisions because you're basing them on old information. If I had to distill all that down, those maxims down to characteristics, I guess those are stay involved, be flexible, be team-oriented, and listen.
I know that this might be a simple question. It may sound like a simple question for you, but it's something that may be important for car dealers in Russia to fully relate to. So I will ask the question. I will ask you to maybe expand on it. We know that you worked as an executive for Xtime, which is a leader of online services. They started as an online services company, appointment making company integrated with DMS systems. They got acquired by Cox Automotive. as I said, one of the largest providers of technologies and services to automotive industry. And now it grew up to be a leader of not just online service convenience for customers, but they covers this company, their technologies and services cover many aspects of interaction between dealers and customers, reports, evaluations, all kinds of things. But still, at the very heart of this company, from what I believe, is the convenience of customers being able to set up appointments online, be that through their mobile application or full website, or I think that some OEMs allow them to do this from the integrating with the touch screen inside the car. So at the very, very bottom, at the very heart of this Xtime is the ability for customers to avoid making a phone call, touching one for service, two for this, and talking to it, is the ability for customer to go online, get the prices, choose the time and make an appointment. And the question is, how important do you feel is this feature for customers? And more importantly, what does it do for dealers? What does the ability to give customers access to the online appointment give for dealers?
Sure. Well, the first answer to is it important? It's tremendously important. Just looking at it from a consumer's viewpoint, nowadays, you know, most of us manage our lives from our mobile devices, right? We do everything using our phones and apps. We want 24/7 access to setting our schedules and our calendars. So just looking at it through that perspective, just as all of us being consumers, busy people, we don't want to be forced to set appointments on someone else's convenience using old methods. We want to do it the way that we want to do it. So at Xtime, and this is an interesting one, 22% of all online appointments were set after hours when the dealership was closed. More than 1 out of 5. You probably wouldn't have gotten those. I mean, think of the scenario. Sorry, but I just paint the scenario because it really kind of hits home with me. Why are people setting up online service appointments after hours? Well, you get home from work, you have dinner, you take care of things, then you sit down in the family room and you go to your computer and you open it up. Oh, I'm going to take care of my personal emails. Oh, here's an email from the dealership that says I'm due for service. I should take care of that now. Now, one of two things happens. I can either click on a button and I can set the appointment, which is what 22% of people do. Or if there's no way to schedule online, then I have to go, oh, okay, I have to remember to call them tomorrow. What's their number? I better get a piece of paper and write that down. Write it down, remember tomorrow morning to call the dealership. When it's busy, wait. You would have lost probably more than 1 out of 5 of those. So just looking at it from those two perspectives, how consumers manage their lives and how people are doing it, those are two, I think, overwhelming reasons. The other one, I think, is using online scheduling. I mean, when you call in, a lot of the time, they're just taking a name. You know, okay, yes, oh, bring it in, you know, bring it in tomorrow at 8 o'clock, bring it in Friday at 8 o'clock. When you're using a system that's available online, you can truly do shop scheduling. Now, one of the things that we know from Xtime is that when given the choice, only 32% of customers wanted to come in before 9 a.m. That left 68% of people to spread throughout the day. So what that means is that having a true online scheduling system allows you to get away from that morning rush, which is easier on your employees, but it's also better for the customer because you're spending more time with them to develop the relationship, to understand their concerns, to make sure that it's a very satisfying and complete experience. Also, we know that the appointment customers spend more. The average RO for an appointment customer was $54 higher than a walk-in customer. And the service retention for appointment customers was higher as well. It was 7.5% higher than non-appointments. Why? Because it was a better experience. By setting a true appointment, when you arrived at the dealership, they knew who you were, why you were coming. You would have put your year, make, and model and all the other information into the computer system. So you had a much better experience. So when done correctly, it sets the table for when the customer arrives at the dealership, and it creates a superior experience. I'm not sure if that's exactly the answer you wanted, but
that explains it. Great explanation. And now before we go into go a little bit to the side, I want to touch on your latest venture, one of your latest ventures.
I have a lot of adventures.
Well, this one is actually interesting because it's unusual, and actually I myself know very little about it. I like to get prepared when I deal with people, and I was trying to get prepared for this webinar, and I know that you worked with Kelley Blue Book, and recently, they launched a service-related product. And from what I understand, you were heavily involved in the development and launch of this product. Don't know the details, but it's sort of more or less your product. And I went on the website, I saw the details, and I was trying to get a dig out of it, but I thought that, you know what, let me just ask Jim. Can you tell me a little bit about this product and why? It is my understanding that it became rather popular. What is it, and how it differs from similar products, if they even exist?
Sure. Well, let me tell you this. It's a fantastic story for anyone who knows and loves automotive. So Kelley Blue Book, KBB, is just an iconic company that's got an almost 100-year-old brand. And in fact, it's the most trusted consumer brand in automotive in the United States. Kelley Blue Book is synonymous with trusted pricing for new and used vehicles. If you want to buy a car, if you want to sell a car, you go to Kelley Blue Book and find out what the pricing is. But they had never done anything before in service. So Cox Automotive owns Kelley Blue Book, and they came to me and said, do you think that KBB can do anything in service? So that was the first thing we had to do, is we had to answer the question, is the KBB audience, do they want help with service? And in looking at the research and talking to customers, not surprising, it's what's on consumers' minds is that, hey, we understand that vehicles are just getting more and more technically complex, right? There's more technology being stuffed into the car. But regardless of what you drive, you could drive a 1990 Ford Fiesta, you could be driving a 2020 Lamborghini. But when it comes to service, everybody is the same. There are 4 fundamental questions that you want to get answered. What do I need to get done? When should I get it done? Who's qualified to do it? And about what should it cost? Those are the 4 fundamentals. And we also knew that consumers' perceptions of the dealer in the United States was that the dealer is more expensive than an independent repair shop, which is really, really interesting because that's a consumer perception. Actually, I should say it's a consumer misperception, because all of the pricing research I've looked at and done shows that, in fact, that's not true. The franchise dealer, when it comes to the maintenance and competitive items, is on par price-wise with the independents. So based on that, we came to the conclusion that when it came to service pricing, dealers have an awareness and a trust problem. Okay. Then we went to the Kelley Blue Book audience, and we essentially asked them, and 63% said that they would be likely or very likely to use Kelley Blue Book for service, repair, or maintenance-related questions. So the decisions to build was obvious. Yes, we should build this. So what we built is essentially an area on Kelley Blue Book, kbb.com, where as a vehicle owner, you can go, you put in your year, make, and model, your mileage, you look up the most common things that you would do to your vehicle, and then based on your geographic area, your zip code, it would give you a price range. So, hey, I need to get a 30,000 mile service done for my 2018 Honda Accord. Oh, in your market area, that would cost between $162 and $191. Well, consumers before, when they were going to talk to the dealership, really didn't have any frame of reference, right? So there was always that mistrust. Are they really telling me the truth? Now you can walk in with information and you can have an informed conversation. And what that does is that builds trust. And additionally, and this was really the most important aspect of this, was building trust, using the most trusted automotive brand as a bridge between the consumer and the dealer also builds trust. Once the consumer is done looking up the price information, they would then be presented a list of dealers in their area who could perform that work, and they just click on the link and schedule online, going back to what we were talking about previously, the importance and the convenience of scheduling online. When I completed the project and left Kelley Blue Book, there were 2 million people per month visiting KBB for the service part of the site. So it was tremendously successful from a consumer perspective. And there were many, many dealers who were interested in becoming a part of that because of, obviously, there were so many consumers coming to the site.
It's very interesting. I just created a question in my head, actually 2 questions. The one question is, let me go with the first one. Is this product based in no small part on the reputation and trustworthiness of KBB? In other words, if it wasn't KBB, this product probably wouldn't have worked, or even maybe would have not worked to the level of success it has achieved with KBB. Would that be safe to say?
So you're exactly right. There's 2 aspects to it. So there are other sites out there that have service pricing information.
Right.
No one's ever heard of them. So the 2 aspects that come together that are unique to KBB, number one is it's already synonymous with reliable pricing. But the other thing is it's already a very, very well-known consumer brand. Creating a consumer brand online is a tremendously difficult and expensive prospect. So what we did with KBB is we used the trust inherent in the brand and the audience that is already coming to it to rapidly get that service to scale. If you're a new company, you would have to spend $100 million just to make consumers aware that you're there so that they could find you through Google or through other search engines and through advertising. So that was the key. It was creating that capability inside of a well-known, iconic consumer brand. Now, if we didn't have the proper pricing, it would have quickly fallen apart. But what we did, and you hear the number right, to develop the pricing, Sergey, we took 200 million repair orders, and we analyzed 200 million repair orders to come up with those reliable prices that we're presenting to consumers. So we felt pretty good about the fact that we were putting really reliable and believable prices in front of the consumers.
So it took a very reputable brand, and it also took a very significant and wide amount of work in order to attach a product to this reliable brand, which would be just as straightforward and reliable as the brand itself.
Precisely.
Okay, short question. Give me a quick question. Give me just a short answer. Staying short of your, I'm sure you have some sort of confidentiality agreement with KBB or whatever, but how do you monetize that? I mean, I assume that if they click on the link, if the customer clicks, chooses the dealer in the zip code or wherever, and they want to get this car service, they click on the link and this lead goes to the service department. They pay you for the lead. How is this service monetized? I'm just trying to think forward a little bit.
Oh, no, it's a great question. I don't mind answering. Before part of our research was not only talking to consumers, but it was talking to dealers and service leaders. And we said, are you interested in this, and would you pay for it? And if so, how would you pay for it? I'm sorry, you said give me a simple answer, and I'm already
It's okay.
talking.
No. If you want to expand on it, that's great. Go ahead.
I can't help myself.
Go ahead. It's interesting. Where else am I going to get such information?
So the first thing that they said to us is, we do not want variable pricing. We want a price that we can count on every month so that we can budget for it. So that sort of threw transaction pricing, charging per lead, out the window, because by its nature, that's variable pricing. So because they wanted a consistent price, that led us to a subscription model. And what we said was, okay, because Kelley Blue Book is a consumer-forward brand, we knew that we had to list every dealer in the country on the site. But for those dealers who subscribe, they get priority. They get a better placement, and they get more information about the dealership, as well as the schedule service button. So if you're a subscribing dealer, you come to the top of the list, and you can look at pictures of the dealership. You can find out hours of operation. You can put a coupon up there, so click here and you get 5% off. And there's a schedule service button. Non-subscribing dealers are listed, but it just gives the name of the dealership, the address, and a phone number.
Very interesting. As I'm listening to you, I'm thinking this is a very thought through business model. Okay. I want to ask you a question that actually came out of your previous answer. And what you just said is that there is a perception, not a fact, but perception that the new car dealers are more expensive than independent shops or chain shops or whatever. And it is a perception. As you just said, the prices, for the most part, are competitive. And from what I understand, for the oil changes or tire rotations, they're actually sometimes cheaper, a little bit cheaper, but in any case competitive. However, I read it in your book. It's actually a very interesting part. I had an honor of you reading your book, probably one of the first people in Russia, but so I took it out of there. The idea never crossed my mind, and it's so much on this. There's things on the surface, and we don't see them. And it's out of your book. Dealers sell 100% of the cars. Not one is missed by the dealers. For the car to get on the road, it has to be sold by the dealer.
Right.
But dealers service over the life cycle of the car. They service an average of 30 of them, about 30%. So somehow along the way, they lose about 70% of their customers that they could have been doing service to. So it is a fact. It's just the math that, when I read it from you, I was like, think of that. Like, how would I ever thought of that? 100%, sell 100%, service 30. But anyway, is there a way, by applying technology, by applying better customer service, whatever, is there a way that dealers can regain a portion of this lost customers?
Well, sure. There are methods to do that, and so the short answer is yes, it is possible to do that. The first step in that is that you have to communicate to those consumers. So you have to have mechanisms in place, and you should take a multi-channel approach, because not everybody likes to be communicated with the same way. But in the US, you want to have email, you want to have direct mail, perhaps phone, live calls, depending on the situation. But the key, in addition to communicating, is that you have to give them a reason. So you have to let them know that you are price competitive. You have to remind them that you are the product experts. And what I mean by that is, as I said previously, vehicles are getting much more and more complex, and consumers know this. And whenever we buy a complex product, whether it's a flat screen TV or a new laptop or a car, typically as a consumer, we associate expertise with that product with who we bought it from. So we need to tout the fact that you, the dealer, can provide a superior technology-enhanced experience with things like online scheduling, online bill pay. You can get status updates by text. Essentially say that you provide a better experience at a competitive price. So you give them a reason to come back. And then if you want to be a little bit more aggressive, you can offer them a financial incentive. Lost and only to lost customers, defected customers, come back and get 5% off, get a free rental car for the day. Really, what you offer as an incentive varies from market to market. So three keys. Okay, first, you must communicate. Second, you must give them a compelling reason to try you again. And third option, give them a financial incentive as well.
So I see. So there are ways, by a complex approach, what you just said, there is a way for the dealers to increase their portion of service business during the life cycle of the car.
Sure. I mean, we as consumers, just keep in mind, and I try to always bring this back to us first as consumers, because every one of us is, right? So it helps to understand that, like, most of the people that I speak to that currently use independent service, Sergey, it's not that they love independent service, but we are creatures of habit and we are busy. So when you find something that kind of works for you, you typically don't change unless you're presented a compelling reason to change. So that's one of the keys, is you have to give a consumer a compelling reason to want to try you again.
That's also a great answer. And as I was listening to this previous answers to my previous questions, the next question sort of pops right out. You described the KBB product that compares the pricing between the dealers and sets up the average. We all know that consumers right now have access to internet. They can see the specials here, specials there. Back 30 years ago, they would have to drive around or at least make some phone calls to get the pricing, and that may not have even been reliable. Right now, consumers are full of information. Is there money to be made? I mean, question pretty direct. Can the money be made in the service department in the environment where the consumers are educated, have access to the information, and you actually even create products that help consumers get this correct information?
So you're wondering can we make money in service given?
Yes. Is there profitability? Can the profitability in service department of the dealerships be sustained considering the volume of information, especially pricing of information, available to consumers, to all of us, as you just said?
Sure. Absolutely. I think that as an industry, the automotive service industry, we do ourselves a little bit of a disservice, because I think we maybe focus too much on lowest price. I don't think most consumers are after the lowest price. I think consumers are interested in a fair price, but that's an important distinction, because fair price is all about how much value you deliver. I'll give you an example, and this goes back to my public speaking that I've been doing for the last couple of years. Let's look at the oil change. If I had a nickel for every time somebody in the business told me that all consumers are interested in when they want to get their oil change is the lowest price, I'd probably have $100 in nickels. But if you look at the data, a different story emerges. According to IMR, market research firm, when they asked consumers why they returned to a dealership for an oil change, how many do you think said because of lowest price?
I don't know.
3%. 3%, low single digits. The number one reason was because they had a good prior experience. 40% of people said that was why they returned to the dealership for an oil change, was because of a good prior experience. And this really is the heart of what we're talking about. Cars are becoming more technically complex. Consumers know that. The dealership is the expert on these complex machines. You have trained specialists, diagnostic equipment, genuine parts. Market yourselves that way. Market yourselves as we provide better value. You're the product experts, then provide a great experience, and customers will love you, and they will pay you a little bit more for that better experience.
That's a good. So by providing a good experience to customers, by meeting their goals and needs, by being more, by giving them time and being relating more to them, consumers would provide better loyalty to the dealership, and in turn allow to make the dealership allowed to make money.
Exactly. And they will pay you a little bit more. Not crazy more, but a little bit more. I mean, there are statistics that show, I just read something recently from Southwest Airlines, where they said that the foundation for their business was loyal customers, because loyal customers they will visit you more often, they'll spend more per visit, so they will afford you a higher gross margin, and they will tell their family and friends to come to you. So you don't need to go to the expensive advertising because you have word of mouth. Loyal customers are the foundation for a successful business.
So the customer satisfaction, which turns into loyalty, in turn turns into profit for dealers.
Absolutely, sure.
Jim, I want to ask you something which is not directly related to what you were doing, but you are so deep into this world of service. I want to ask you this question. It's something which bothers or at least worries some dealers in the United States and in Russia. Many manufacturers right now are discussing changing the sales model. Some manufacturers, OEMs, are further away from it. Some are closer to it. Tesla is already doing it. I'm speaking specifically about car manufacturers going around car dealers and selling cars directly to consumers. As I just mentioned, Tesla does it in some states. In some states, they're not allowed to do that. Some manufacturers like Volkswagen, one of the largest ones in the world, they're already starting. They were supposed to start it early this year. I don't know how the epidemics affected it. They're starting the program where they will partially allow consumers to buy directly from the factory, and the dealers, as you know, they have millions of dollars investments in facilities. Some of those dealers have generations, lives of generations of owners and sometimes employees invested in the dealerships, and it worries them that their investments and their lifetime experience may be gone. OEMs may not need them anymore. But everybody agrees that no matter what happens with sales model, people will always need to service their cars at the car dealership. So in a sense, the service department is what is widely believed is going to ensure car dealers their place in the future, their profits in the future, and their survival. Do you agree with this concept, what I just said, or maybe you disagree with it? And how do you see the importance of the service evolving in the near and far future?
So the near and the far. Yeah. So, I mean, you said it, I think, perfectly. The sales models are going to continue to evolve. typically those things don't happen as fast as we think they will. But when it comes to service, how does the dealer get diluted or taken out of that equation? I mean, if you just look at, so warranties are getting, generally speaking, are getting longer and deeper, right? And as vehicles become more complex, warranty will become more important. Now, warranty, at least in the United States, has increased 38% in the last 5 years. And that's not because there's, you had Takata airbags or ignition switches. It's because there are many, many, many more small recalls having to do with electronics. Well, as you put more and more electronics in the vehicles, I think you're going to see more recalls and more warranty. So just looking at it through that narrow perspective, I don't see how you take the dealer out of the equation, because safety recalls and just warranty overall still need to be done by somebody. And with vehicles getting more complex, I mean, if you think about independent service stations or anybody who's a non-dealer, they're sort of generalists, right? Hey, I work on European cars, or hey, I work on American cars. As vehicles get more complex and have more technology, how can somebody be a generalist and know everything they need to know about those vehicles? If you just think about the sensors, there more and more sensors are being put inside and outside of a car, and you need to have very specialized equipment to calibrate those. How can a generalist do that? So I think that service continues to evolve along specialist lines, and the dealer is best positioned to be the specialist for the servicing of that complex piece of technology. And if I needed to look someplace else, Sergey, I would look at the trend line for dealership profitability. If you look at the last 5 years, total dealership gross profit, fixed operations is becoming an increasing percentage of total dealership gross. In 2019, for the first time, at least according to NADA, fixed operations was more than 50% of total dealership gross profit. I don't see that stopping. So there's two, I don't know if that answers your question, but there's two examples of how I think service is going to play an increasingly important role in the overall health of the dealership.
That's a good answer. Jim, let me also ask you this question, which steps away from the dealers. In Russia, there are some major, some people in the United States don't know it, but in Russia, there are some major car manufacturers, actually good ones. There's a passenger car manufacturer, LADA. They are inexpensive car, but they're coming up and they sell a lot of them. It's a very big manufacturer. Not sure how many of them they build, but it's a lot. There is a major commercial vehicle manufacturer, GAZ. They make buses and all those things. And there's also this one I really like. There's a huge, really big manufacturer of heavy duty trucks, KAMAZ. I don't know if you ever heard of them. They've been winning. You heard about Paris Dakar Rally?
Sure.
Okay, well, they've been winning it in a heavy duty truck class more than anybody else for like 15, 20 times. And listen to this, in 2014, it's actually, and they're competing against Mercedes, Volvo, all those big names. Nobody beats them. Nobody beats them. Listen to this. In 2014, I think, yeah, I think it was either 2013 or 2014. 3 trucks competed. And this is the most grueling race. It goes through desert and all kinds of tough environment. It's hard. Those trucks are jumping, and I don't know if you ever watched it. It's amazing. Huge trucks, and they jump over. Anyway, they took first, second, and third place. And do you know who was the 4th place?
No.
The technical support vehicle. And this is you can check that. I mean, 1, 2, 3, and the 4th place was the technical support vehicle, and then all those Mercedeses and Volvos and everybody else behind them. So anyway,
that's awesome.
It was actually very interesting. But the question is, and I'm sure that this our effort to bring in the knowledge of the most advanced automotive market, like the United States, sales and service like yourself would attract attention of automotive manufacturers. So let's step aside from the dealer business. How important it is for the OEMs, for the car manufacturer, to have their network provide satisfaction to their customers. Those advanced methods of working with the customers, with online tools and everybody else. I know that like if we go to Xtime, I know that many manufacturers partnered with Xtime and offer their services, the OEM equipment, some of them integrated in their navigation or whatever, the infotainment system. How important is everything that we just discussed, not for the dealers, but for OEMs?
Oh gosh, it's very, very important. If you think about the business of an automotive manufacturer, they only sell two primary products, right? The vehicles and the parts that go in the vehicles. So if you take a look at the loyalty that the manufacturers enjoy, not dealers, but the manufacturers, let's break it into two categories. You've got your mass market and your luxury. J.D. Powers, in their most recent report, said that Lexus ranks highest amongst luxury brands, meaning somebody who owns a Lexus bought another Lexus. Do you know what their loyalty rate is, Sergey?
I think Lexus is very high.
48%. That's the highest of the luxury brands. Now, maybe I'm looking at it wrong, but when somebody tells me we have a 48% loyalty rate, you know what I hear? A 52% failure rate. You know, yeah, a luxury brand, Mercedes was second. They were right behind them, about 47.8, and then BMW was behind them at about 45%. Interestingly, the mass market brands score higher when it comes to loyalty. The top, and this is really, really great, was Subaru. Subaru was 60%. And Toyota was just a couple hundredths of a percent behind them. But here's the thing, whether you're talking about luxury at 48% or mass market at 60%, you're talking about a 40 to 50% failure rate. So the amount of money that the manufacturer has to spend to make up for those lost customers is in the billions of dollars. So the more you satisfy the customers, satisfaction leads to loyalty, the less you have to spend on advertising. Therefore, the more profitable you are. So personally, I think whether you're a dealer or you're a manufacturer, loyalty is the most critically important thing that you must be focused on because of the huge dollars that are involved managing non-loyalty.
Стоимость авто. Она показывает авто по ценам ниже рыночных. Сэкономлю процентов 15 минимум.
Ого!
Авито сравнивает цены на похожее авто в моем регионе. Они смотрят на модель, год выпуска, пробег и многое другое.
Авито. Покупайте автомобили по отличной цене.
Actually, you know that the sponsor of our project is a company called Avito. It's
Yes.
I told you about it. It's a #1 classified site in Russia, and it's actually the second largest classified site in the world. And they have, I think they have daily hits of 50 million. They have a very large online market presence. And this company is actually interesting because they're very straightforward. They stand for a transparent and civilized market and fair competition, and they promote good things. They are a official partner of ROAD, which is a Russian Automobile Dealers Association, sort of an equivalent of NADA in the United States. And as an official partner of ROAD, they are doing their best to bring in best tools, knowledge, and infrastructure from more advanced market. And that is the reason they supported this project, to help Russian automotive community, help dealers So it's a very good effort. And they also pragmatic and smart people, as probably just like Cox. I worked with Cox. I know they're not that smart. So they know that I am doing these webinars, and they asked me to ask this question, coming directly from them. A lot of people talk, and there's talk from here, talk from there, but they asked me to ask you to tell us about a business case where something that you are those technologies that you are promoting in your books, or rather not promoting you, but writing about in your books, the best methods. Can you tell us a specific business case where those technologies, methods, or best practice were applied, and what did it do for the dealer?
Sure. So what first comes to mind is a U.S. West Coast dealer, specifically in California, a domestic dealer who implemented shop scheduling. They reached a point where 80% of all of their ROs were from online appointments, which is remarkable. And those ROs from those appointments were generating over $100,000 a month in business. They saw an increase of traffic over 20% and a double-digit increase in customer retention. So just huge numbers. Now, just to be fair, and maybe there's that is an outlier. You know, everybody, there are always, if you think of technology implementations, right, it's your typical bell curve distribution, and there's always a group over here that just knock it out of the park, which is great because that shows everybody if you really get after it, you can achieve outstanding results. The average dealer, when implementing online scheduling, would see about 77 more repair orders a month. That's 77, and about a 13% increase in retention. You generate more ROs because that is a more convenient conduit to the dealership, so you get more people, and you increase your retention because they're getting a better experience. So an additional 77 ROs is about $24,000 per month in additional revenue, and that's at a cost of about $900 per month. Now, it takes less than a month to set up, but how quickly it succeeds depends on how quickly you communicate to your customers that online scheduling is available. So if you do multiple email campaigns, if you talk about it when you deliver new vehicles, if you put it on your website, if you talk about it in the service lane, then they ramp up very quickly. If you don't do that, then it takes a while longer. So 77 additional ROs at about 24,000 a month, and about a 13% increase in service retention on average.
That's great information. Now, I want to also underscore or actually clarify for some people who will be listening to this webinar may not be able to pick this specific out. You show this numbers relate to only one aspect of a combination of your methods and best practices, which is specifically online appointments. There are other things in your book. There are other approaches and service, probably many of them. So I just want to make sure that our audience who will be listening completely relate to what you just said. As a business case, you have taken specific area, which is something I asked you a few questions back, online schedule, and what it specifically does for the dealer. There are other things that can go other ways, but this is what that answer related to, correct?
That's that specific. Let me, if I can, Sergey, I'll comment on the averages of some of the others.
Please do.
So what I call the mobile service experience. So I bucket online scheduling by itself. Mobile service experience would include the write-up, where you have a mobile device, or the ability for the consumer to check themselves in from their phone, automatic texts, and online bill pay, right? So I can manage the experience from my phone, essentially. Providing that, you see about a $12 increase per RO in sales, which winds up being about $19,000 a month. And you see about a 10.6% increase in retention.
I'm sorry, I want to interrupt you. What is that for? That's for mobile...
Mobile service experience, but that's kind of the catch-all name that includes a mobile device. The service advisor is using a mobile device in the lane, right? Or the consumer is using their phone and an app to check themselves in. Text updates. So I get a text saying, hey, your vehicle is done. And the ability to pay online. I don't have to come to the dealership and stand in line for the cashier. You send me a text that essentially says, your vehicle is done. It's $288. Would you like to pay now? And you can pay online versus at the dealership. Those things combined.
So to make sure that our audience and actually myself as well are completely together in it, we start the process by allowing consumers to make the schedules online, giving them a convenience. That alone increases it to the numbers that you have outlined. Then they come into the dealership. We give them additional convenience of checking themselves in, or having a service advisor use the tablet or some sort of a handheld computer to write them up quicker, or actually even have the consumers themselves check themselves in. And that gives us an extra increase. And that probably is not the end of it. There are other things to go. But what you have just spoken about is two technologies. One, before the consumer gets into the dealership, which is online, and then once the consumer gets into the dealership. Two pieces of technologies that can give, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I want you to say it, if that's true. Did I hear it right that this is something that can get rather dynamic results? It doesn't have to be like 2-year project.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, it gets dynamic results. I mean, let's just talk about mobile service experience specifically. How does it generate more sales? Well, when the service advisor is in the lane using a mobile device, or you're checking yourself in, you've told the technology how many miles you have on your car. It knows your year, make, and model. So it will do two things. Number one, it will present to you, hey, you're due for your 30,000 mile service. And number two, it can go and look at past repair orders and say, the last time you were here, we told you you needed brake pads and you didn't get them. Maybe you should get them now. So the technology, in a very sort of unobtrusive way, nudges the consumer to get things that they're supposed to have.
I see. So it's
and especially in today's pandemic kind of situation where we're all nervous about interacting with people and we like to be touch-free, you can have a touch-free experience.
It's interesting. It actually, I just want to confirm that it's sort of a somewhat similar to F&I menu sales. So in other words, allows the service advisor to, every time they meet the customer, not depend on what they remember about the car, the brand, the mileage, gives them a consistency of helping them sort of a, oh, okay, it gives them that this car, you can offer this, and allow the customer, all the service advisor has to do is just show it to the customer, and it's actual information, and the customers can sell themselves.
That's
so
exactly right.
And it brings the consistency into the process.
There's a consistency to the process. And if you think about, so there are three primary technologies. We've talked about two. But if they're behaving correctly, if they're configured correctly, when I set my appointment up, again, I told it my year, make, and model and my mileage. It should have presented me with, hey, here's what the manufacturer recommends. Do you want to get your 30,000 mile service? If I said yes, then I'm done. If I said no, the mobile service experience reminds me, right? So it's not the first time I'm hearing it, it's the second time. And now I should be thinking, well, I really need to get it done. It is what the manufacturer recommends. I'm already at the dealership. This is a good price. So set up correctly, the technologies are reinforcing the other elements. Now, the third piece, which really is not so much consumer facing as it's shop facing, is the MPI, your multi-point inspection tool. That is really your primary selling tool, because in that case, the technician has a mobile device and he follows a pre-designed checklist of everything that you want to check on the car, and then you present that back to the vehicle owner. On average, you increase your sales by $102 per repair order when you're using an MPI, an electronic MPI tool. And one of the things that the MPI enables when used in conjunction with the other technologies is the delivery of the report, of the vehicle report. So if my technician is using an MPI properly, he's going through the 30 steps that you have to inspect on the vehicle, but he's also using the device to either take pictures or, better yet, make a video. And then you hand that video to the mobile service experience and it's texted to the vehicle owner. Well, now it's not some guy calling and saying, hey, another guy has your car up in the air and says you need brake pads. You're getting a video of your car and your brake pads and the technician pointing and saying, hi, I had your wheels off and I'm inspecting your car, and you can see right here that your pads are thin. We recommend replacing your brake pads. It's a fantastic selling tool. So those are kind of the three things that I typically talk about and that I really highlighted in the book.
It's actually interesting that you kept the best for the last. $102 per repair order increase.
Well, keep in mind though, so the first two increase sales, but they are about driving loyalty, right? They provide a better experience. The MPI really doesn't, from the consumer's perspective, change the experience that much. It's primarily a dealership selling tool.
I think that this conversation is going really great. We went through general things, and now we got to details, and you just outlined with very specific averages, with very specific numbers, that this is how much it increases, this is how much it increases percentage in dollars, 3 steps, and that is a more detailed answer to how dealers can make money. I just wanted to kind of underscore that. So I have 2 questions left. Those are interesting questions.
We could do this all day. I'm having a lot of fun.
I enjoyed myself, but a lot of people who are, I can easily go for another hour or 2, but a lot of people who will be watching it probably busy. So
that's a good point.
We don't want to overwhelm them. We want to have.
And now an interview with Jim Roche for 6 hours.
Yeah. So just like you said, people appreciate online appointments because they take care of their time. So we want to compress as much information as possible, but still keep it within reasonable amount of time. So my question is this: there are many books about automotive sales, marketing, F&I not that many, but car sales and marketing. There are tons and tons of books. Some of them are weak, some of them are stronger. One of our, we have signed up one of the stronger sales experts, and publishing his book along with yours. But there are very few books on service, very few. Yours is probably one of the best sellers. Actually, it is a bestseller, and one of the very few books that are on service. considering all the amount of importance that yourself and everybody who knows the business puts on search, why there is so few books about it? Nobody knows nothing about it. How come?
Well,
Is
that
there
is
an
a
answer
great
to that
question. So if you go and you look in the preface of Fastlane, I actually asked the question, does anyone read books about automotive service? That was in the preface of the first book. Yeah, I think it's maybe it's two things. First, well, maybe it's three things. I think that selling cars, a lot of people think selling cars is sexy, and maybe servicing cars isn't. I don't see it that way, but maybe some people do. But generally speaking, customer service, I think it's a complicated subject, and maybe some people might find it boring. Now, when I talk to my friends or business associates who tell me that it's boring, I tell them that it's an over $300 billion a year industry in the U.S. with an average gross profit of 48%. Then they don't think it's boring. I remind them that today service makes up over 50% of total dealership profit, and then we have their attention. So I think maybe it's those things. Maybe it's not sexy. Maybe it's complicated. Maybe some people think it's a little bit boring, but it is becoming increasingly important. We all know that. So I think that I would guess that we'll be seeing more books. I mean, I wrote a second book, Sergey, because the first book sort of, I think, touched on an untapped demand. And people like, whoa, hey, more, tell us some more, which led, when I wrote the first one, it was a very exhausting effort, and I did not plan to write a second one, but it was really the audience that wanted the second one. So I think we'll see more. Sorry, that's a very rambling answer. I guess the bottom line is I don't know for sure. Those are my suspicions.
That's not a rambling answer. I totally related to it. It's a good answer. It's a great answer. I better than I expected. And here comes the last question. I like that you mentioned your second book. Between us, we know that we are already working on your second book, and it's going to come out soon. But your first book is probably going to be available by the time people see this webinar, available for order. And that's a book, Fastlane. I was actually thinking before this webinar, should I start with, this is Jim Roche, and he's a author of this best-selling book, but I thought that, why don't I be different and make this book as a last question? So today we're talking about your first book, which is Fastlane, and it's translated differently in Russian, but it's Fastlane. And two questions. Well, it's actually a two-part question. One is, give us a 2-sentence, 3-sentence, a little quick rundown. What is this book about? What is the importance of this book? And who should be reading it among automotive dealerships? Can you show us the book too, just so the here it is. Here's Fastlane. So what is this book about, and why is it important, and who should be reading it among automotive dealership employees?
Sure.
Or maybe not just, I'm sorry, did I interrupt? Maybe not even just dealership, but maybe who should read this book? Take that.
So, yeah. So Fastlane is the first book, and I wrote it because I think that customer loyalty is the most important aspect in automotive retail today. So we talk about, and the way to drive customer loyalty is to deliver a better experience. And for today's consumer, that needs to be a technology enhanced experience. So Fastlane is about what that is. What is a technology enhanced experience? And at least as important, why? Why do we need to do it? In other words, why you, the dealer, need to change and what you need to do to deliver that new consumer experience. Fast Break, which is the follow-on, which is the second book, builds on Fastlane, and it's more about how to do it. I interviewed many successful dealers who have implemented a technology-enhanced experience, and I used their examples to tell the story in the second book. So the first one is why and what, and the second one is how. The second part of your question was, who do I recommend reading the book? Certainly, dealer principals, general managers, and service leaders should read it if they're interested in learning how to improve loyalty. But I also think that technicians and service advisors, I mean, anybody in the service or support organization can benefit. And the reason for that is because Fastlane explains why. And a lot of time as leaders or managers, when we make a decision to do something, to change a strategic direction, we'll go to our people and we'll say, here is what I want you to do. But people function better, particularly when it comes to change, when they understand why they're doing what they're doing. What's the reason for the change? How does it impact the customer? How does it impact me? How does it impact the larger business? And Fastlane is all about the why. So I think anybody who touches the service experience can benefit from Fastlane, but certainly service leaders, general managers, and dealer principals.
Jim, let me ask you, I was listening to your answer, and we expanded a little bit about the importance of this techniques, combination of methods, business practices, and technologies for OEMs, for the manufacturers. And we know that the building of a good network of dealers and increasing customer loyalty has a great importance for the manufacturers. Would I be incorrect or stretch? Would that be a stretch to say that this book would be of no less value to OEM manufacturers in order to improve the quality of their network? We kind of forgot about that. It just came to my mind. There certainly would be a benefit of reading this book. I don't know. I worked with a couple of OEMs directly. I don't know who is there what, but there should be a value of this book to OEMs too.
Oh, I think so. I think that anyone who is interested in improving loyalty can benefit from the book, even non-automotive people. I mean, a lot of the book is automotive specific, but there are concepts in here about customer handling processes, a technology enhanced experience that aren't necessarily just for automotive. But I think one of the keys for an automotive manufacturer, because I wrote both books primarily from a dealer perspective, if an auto manufacturer is reading them, it might help them a little bit more get the dealer perspective versus because, you know, they spend a lot of time talking about retention, I think, but this is really, as best as I could, I tried to write it through the dealer's eyes. So dealer perspective would be helpful for the manufacturer as well.
That's a great, it's one of the, I don't know how many people will appreciate it, but that's one of the greatest points of this webinar. I've been a dealer for a number of years. I had 4 dealerships back in the United States, and it's historically, there's been a disconnect between dealers and OEMs. Dealers, OEMs are trying to tell dealers how to sell cars, and dealers say, don't worry about us selling cars. You build them, we sell them. And you know, they don't understand the DMS, and so it's a great point that the book may open eyes and give a much deeper knowledge to OEMs about the internal processes, the bottlenecks within the service department, how dealers should be improving, and it can help them help their dealer network to improve. So I think it's a great answer. Anyway, Jim, first of all, I wanted to again thank you very much for your effort for allowing us to, together with you, bring this knowledge to the Russian automotive community. Thank you very much for your time and for this webinar. And we are certainly hoping to keep this relationship going. One day, introduce next book to the Russian automotive community, maybe do some other things. Who knows? Maybe we'll one day you'll visit Russia and get a chance to introduce yourself and meet some interesting people here. So thank you
It's been
again.
a lot of fun, and I would love to do that. Thank you very much.
All right, Jim. Thank you very much for your time, and have a great day.
Это мир Авито, где теперь появилась оценка стоимости авто. И мы с сыном быстро нашли авто по цене ниже рынка и можем больше времени провести вместе. Сосиска. Авито сравнивает цены на похожее авто в моем регионе. Они смотрят на модель, пробег, год выпуска и многое другое.
Авито. Покупайте автомобили по отличной цене.